¿Puedes colocar el video, Osvaldo, por favor?
Now we are live, thank you.
The International Association of Coaching. Home of the coaching masteries.
Welcome, everyone. We have translations in English, Spanish, Chinese, and French for you. So just follow the instructions on the screen and plug into your required language. If you have questions about it, do type on the chat and someone will assist you. So greetings and welcome to IAC's Learning Circle. It is my privilege and honor to welcome all the members of IAC and all the guests who are here today. I'm Kavita and I'm here as your moderator and host. You're welcome. Yeah, I've never plugged into an IAC session and walked out without learning something, or let's say unlearning. Today is that this will happen for me and for all of us here. Heard of this novelist called Alvin Toffler. He said something like this. He said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I just want to welcome each and every one of you here to make that attempt to learn, unlearn, or relearn today if that's something we have to do. We're going to talk, of course, about a very important subject that matters to us as a society globally, but also to each one of us as individuals. All of us want to be accepted, respected, and be given the space to grow, to be the best that we can be. And for that to happen, our access to opportunities and our human right to be treated without bias or discrimination matters. And bias, discrimination, and the lack of inclusion is often obvious to those of us who have experienced it. But to some of us who are in positions of privilege or in positions of power, whether it is conferred on us culturally, socially, or positionally in our roles at work, the plight of those who are not included or are discriminated against is not very obvious. American sociologist Professor Michael Kimmel, while talking about, for instance, gender equality, he said privilege is often invisible to those who have it. But conversations such as this makes us all visible and hopefully makes us all better human beings who see everyone else as well. And yes, we are here to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but more importantly, the role of coaching in the DE&I space. And we want to endeavor to make DE&I an authentic part of course, our workspaces. But for me, I believe that it has to be an authentic part of who we are, first of all, as individuals. And then we take it to wherever we go. So right from our families to our larger communities, and then we also carry it into our workspaces. So what is the significant role of coaching in this conversation? How can coaching contribute to the authenticity of transformation in the DE&I space? To enrich our conversation today, IAC India chapter is honored to have as our panel members highly accomplished Aslam Ansari is an IAS Masteries practitioner from Mumbai. He's a strategic HR consultant and leadership coach with over 25 years of experience in various industries. He specializes in nurturing latent competencies. His blended learning model has been highly successful with clients across industries, cultures, and demographics. We also have Ritu, who is a member of the School Accreditation Committee of IAC, and she's a Masteries practitioner as well. Ms. Ritu Mathur has over 25 years of experience to working with clients across the talent life cycle, including psychometrics assessment centers, leadership and executive development, competency frameworks, and employing coaching in the space of conducting organizational development interventions. Now, about my own interest in the subject of DE&I, it spans across 25 years of experience as a social activist, in the nonprofit sector, and as a trainer and coach who's passionate about building a culture of equality in the workspace. It is my privilege to host this conversation for us today. And I want to open our conversation by inviting our panelists to make their opening remarks on what is the significance of coaching in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mr. Aslam, if you can start, and then Ritu can follow you.
Kavita, I'm not sure whether Aslam has joined in. Are you able to see him?
I am not able to see him, but should we wait, or would you like to open?
Yeah, maybe we can just check with him. If there's
Okay,
any...
I'll do that. I'll do that while you.
Creo que Ashelan no está en sala, Kavita. Ha tenido problemas de internet.
Okay. So maybe I can start, Kavita, would that be okay with you?
Sorry, I missed what you said, Ritu. Could you just say that again?
I said maybe I can start.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, let's start having the conversation, and I'm sure he will join. Let's hope he will join, and hope the technical issues are fixed. So yes, it's over to you, Ritu.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kavita, for inviting me for this learning circle and hosting this learning circle from India. And I think while we were discussing the topic, which could be relevant for this particular learning circle, when you came up with this topic, I felt that this is a very, very relevant topic, and especially in the current social landscape that we are in. And I personally feel that coaching provides a valuable platform for individuals to develop certain mindsets, skills, and actions necessary to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think by engaging in coaching conversations, individuals can contribute to building more inclusive workplaces and also inclusive societies and communities. And I think there are a number of ways in which coaching can aid this. The first and the most important one is I think coaching can help us in building awareness and educate communities. And coaches can help raise awareness by talking about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also provide information, education on topics such as unconscious biases related to gender, age, and different classes. Now we have neurodivergent communities. Even privilege is one aspect which I think it's very, very important to talk about, because that's also something that one needs to be aware of when we are talking about inclusion. And in Indian context, I think it is one thing which we also see is very often is systemic discrimination. And I think building awareness around these topics through coaching conversations, I think individuals can gain a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by marginalized groups and probably develop empathy and sensitivity towards diversity-related issues. So this is one of the ways in which coaching can aid when it comes to building awareness in education. I think another area where coaching can be of a big help is skill development. And I think coaching can support development of specific skills necessary for creating inclusive environments. In my experience, I find that we as coaches can help leaders, managers to enhance their communication skills, emotional intelligence, or even cultural competence. So that they are better equipped to address biases and promote inclusivity and effectively manage diverse teams. And I think this particularly is very relevant in the kind of workforce that we see. And also, I think our coaching is not limited to workplace. We also do coaching for in colleges with students. And I know, Kavita, you do that with NGOs. And I think coaching can be of big help in building skills as well. One thing which I also feel which is very, very relevant in context of this topic is that we as coaches can help in building, self-awareness and thereby encourage personal growth too. So coaches, and especially as coaches, we have to look at creating safe space for individuals to engage in self-reflection and probably examine our own biases and assumptions as well. And that would help in encouraging personal growth. And it would also help individuals to be more self-aware and look at ways in which they could cultivate a mindset of inclusivity. So self-reflection is very crucial for individuals, and it does help in recognizing and addressing your own biases, and also thereby contribute to a more inclusive workplace culture. So while we see in organizations these days that there's much more accountability and much more action around diversity and inclusion, however, as coaches, coaching can also help in individuals in setting goals and creating action plans that would promote diversity and inclusion. So it should not be limited to organizations, as something which is there on paper, but then coaches can also help in actively looking at creating purposeful plans and action around that. And they can help their coachees to identify specific actions to take to foster diversity, create more equitable practices, and also hold individuals accountable for their commitment. So in my view, these are specific areas where I feel coaching has meaning when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thanks, Ritu, for setting the stage for the conversation today. I think you've just sort of nailed it right in the beginning by saying how coaching can actually help strategize that pathway towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. So thanks for that. And Mr. Aslam is back. He's here. So we just started, Aslam, with what is the significance of coaching in the world of DEI? So your opening remarks are welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry for this technical glitch that I got into.
No worries.
So, see, the way I look at coaching per se and the need of coaching in DEI is that, see, diversity or DEI is not something which is natural. Had it been naturally happening, then this all would not be needed. And even if you look at organizations, they tend to have similar kind of similarity in terms of skills, people, race, gender, and so on and so forth. And even if we look at the animal world, they tend to be in their own teams, which are very, very similar. But what we have seen from the teams which have come out with fantastic winning streaks, they are built where the diversity has been taken together. Even if you look at nature, the entire world per se is an ecosystem, and the ecosystem exists because of the diversity. So it's very, very natural, and wherever organizations want to grow, want to be the top in their own field, diversity and inclusion has to be. And because it is not natural and doesn't happen automatically, coaching is a must, and to be able to emphasize to the leaders, to the people, to the team, to the entire organization and the society at large, the coaching is a tool used very rampant where it is not natural and to make it happen. And the teams are built in such a way that they make sure that they win at the end of the day. So this is my take, and wherever you have certain change initiatives going on, coaching becomes very, very important. And that's the significance of coaching per se in the business world or as such, where I have been kind of associated for not so many years. That's my take on the significance of.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Where it is not natural for us to think about diversity and inclusion. Coaching kind of provides that environment, that nudge that we need to constantly think about the other person. So yeah, thanks for that. And Ritu, I just wanted to ask you, what does it mean to you personally when we talk about DEI? What were your challenges as a woman in the coaching world? Could you share some of your stories with regard to your coaching experience as a woman?
I think that's a very interesting question, Kavita. I think personally, as a woman, I never felt that I have been, I had a challenge as a coach. However, yeah, if I were to probably share an example, there have been some occasions where explicitly, in certain organizations, the client has mentioned that they would prefer maybe coaches who are probably male. Males would feel more comfortable with a male. And I think till a few years ago, even my age was considered as one of the probably reasons why why maybe a coaching assignment would not come to me. Having said that, we also see a trend or a pattern that, very often if there is a woman leader, they are assigned women coaches. Probably what they perceive is that, there would be better equation, better understanding, better connect, more empathy if a woman leader is assigned a woman coach. So, and we see that trend at least in India. Having said that, it doesn't mean that I don't coach male leaders, and all of them or males I've not been coaching them. But there is some kind of reservation or some kind of inhibition at times that probably some organizations share about having a preference of probably a male coach in certain scenarios.
Thank you for that. But I somehow feel that sometimes it's good, the empathy that a woman coach brings to the table is good, and that doesn't mean that a male coach wouldn't have empathy. But I guess we can learn a lot from each other, both as men and women
Right.
who are coaches. So yeah, thanks a lot, Ritu. Mr. Aslam, can I ask if you can share something? What do coaches need to develop? How can they develop, for instance, the competencies, both the skills as well as the sensitivity needed to promote DE&I? And again, do you have stories in your experience about how you help sensitize your coaches in growing to become more inclusive?
Yeah, so that's a big question, and I'll kind of share a story particularly where the sensitivity was the prime factor, particularly a textile industry background where it was a male-dominated shop floor. The entire manufacturing was conducted by males across the industry and this organization as well. Now, if you look at the number of females, there were hardly a couple of them in the administrative area and maybe a couple of accounts, finance, but nobody on the shop floor. It was a 3-shift working plan. And then one time the management thought about bringing in females on the shop floor. Mm-hmm. Now, this itself was an idea which was almost challenged by everywhere, even the existing norms. The reason was business oriented as well, because when you have certain work which is very intricate, which requires a lot of patience. There was a feeling that females can do it better. I might sound a little odd the way Ritu was trying to say, but yes, when the work is very intricate, very delicate, females can do it better. So this was the textile industry, and we tried getting in people. So this entire top management, first of all, needed to be put on the same page, saying that yes, it is possible. So once they were sensitized to the fact that yes, it is possible, they were clear on the fact that yes, we can do it, we want to do it, it makes business sense. So whenever, the sensitization is one part where it has to be, the business case must come out. Then only the top leaders are in sync and they want to. Then we went on to looking at what are the typical, issues that females on the shop floor would feel. It took us almost a good 3 months to be able to see how we can prepare the workplace. Because there was an experiment done before that, and to our surprise, it failed. Because the women, female workers, they came and then they felt that no, it's not good enough for us, and then they went back. So to counter that, we took almost 3 months to sensitize everybody in the organization. Training programs were conducted, the leaders were coached, particularly where the sensitivity, even for an example, it's an example from the shop floor, that they never had a change room. Now, for a female to come in, for a category of them to work in, they needed to get into that. They needed to make sure that all the heavy task is done by either automation or by male counterparts. That was also a very sensitive thing. Going to the shop floor, trade unions are there. They can create a havoc. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that still the management, the supervisors were not sensitive to the needs of the incoming, female workers. It was not possible to do it. But when they started understanding, even the kind of policies that were there, the kind of reward and recognitions were there, the kind of appraisal systems were there, they all had to be revamped and looked at in that mode. So the sensitivity is not only at the mental level, at the leadership level, it is everywhere. Once you have that, then it becomes useful and doable. Thank you.
That is powerful, where we're not talking about sensitizing just at the top leadership level, but it just has to sort of permeate through the organization, and coaching can help make that happen. So that is an interesting response. Every country and every context has its own legacy of hurt, like, because you were talking about context and how it works here. And that is a quote from Rohini Anand's book called Leading Global Diversity, Equity and Inclusion. Every country and context has its own legacy of hurt. So as much as we need a global vision for DE&I, we also need to look at every context. And Rita, my next question to you is, how do we unpack those local dynamics in each context? How can coaches be sensitive to culture and context? And talking about the IAC masteries, what can a coach do from being effective in the mastery of engaged listening and progress towards inviting possibility for change?
Kavita, that's a really good question. I think I'm not sure about the global audience, but our country itself has, it's very, very vast with we have regions, we have languages, different languages, we have, a lot of, we have communities which are still marginalized. So our social landscape, as well as, our work landscape is very, very complex. And I think to a large extent, the government in our organization had been trying to have practices which were more inclusive, or at least to include all aspects of the community, but which has resulted in, of course, more complexities in our workspace. So I think which is very, very crucial as coaches, what we can do to address this is that we look at identifying and exploring biases and blind spots that each one of us or maybe their coaches may have. And I think this is a very, very crucial aspect, because once we do identify biases through probably building self-awareness, self-reflection, I think it would also help, coaches to reveal, their own blind spots. And I think this is a very important piece, which I think coaches can help when it comes to look at making progress towards inviting possibility for transformation. I think the second thing which would help and which would also look at addressing, especially understand the finer nuances, of the communities as well as the culture which exists or the context in which we are having the conversation, is to gain cultural knowledge, understand not only the local culture, but also understand what kind of, probably limitations, or maybe what kind of, biases that the other communities tend to face, being more empathetic. I think that is another thing which would help. And the third aspect which would really help is to build competence in the coaches, to not only build on those or to overcome those biases, but also look at contributing to the whole culture of building diversity, equity, and inclusion. The other way in which probably coaches can help is to actually practice having difficult diversity DEI conversations. I think that is something which is, again, which could be a skill, but it also something which the coaches can help or enable their coaches to have in case they have to have those conversations at workplace. And it's important that I think in the whole larger landscape, it is also very crucial that the coaches are also aware of their own biases and assumptions, because we tend to have that too. We also have certain unconscious biases. And
absolutely.
Yeah, so it's equally important for us to be self-aware and constantly question ourselves as well, whether we hold any unconscious bias. And are we, some maybe unwittingly, projecting it on our coaches too. So it's very, very important to be aware of the boundaries when we are having these conversations, so one needs to be very sensitive about it. So I think we have to start ourselves with questioning our own beliefs, our own, self, maybe it could be our own biases. And I think that's also very crucial piece when we're looking at addressing this.
Beautifully answered, Ritu. Thank you for that. And I just want to remind our participants, if you have questions, feel free to post it on the chat. We'll try and see if we can answer some of your questions. But yeah, while we continue to have the conversation on DEI, Mr. Aslam, could you help us with how can a coach trust the coaching process to change the course of the coaching? Sometimes in coaching conversations, you can see that obvious bias, and the temptation is to just step in and fix it. But how can we trust the coaching process to make the change?
Thank you. And in fact, it's a very, very simple answer. Follow the mastery.
There's some interference with your thing. Yeah.
Hello, is it better now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, in fact, the IAC has given us these 9 masteries, and we just have to follow it without, going left, right. If we just follow these masteries, because at the end of the day, it is not about what your own biases or your own, uh, thought processes are there in terms of DEI. You are helping the coaching, and it's a process, and we just have to follow the, because see, every human being, as Ritu was mentioning, that every human being will have some or the other thought process, some of the other biases, but the process of the masteries, making sure that you are, exactly following what is there, and particularly if it is a DEI, and you are aware that there may be certain biases that you might already have, it is much more important to follow exactly what has been given in the masteries, because it is all about the client, it is nothing about you. And when the issues do come up, make sure that you are having an engaged listening, clarifying, and expressing. These 3 things, whenever there is a deviation, just have to come back to that. And it helps. It helps because, particularly in my experience, where there were issues, the example that I talked about, there were many things which were raised. No, no, not possible. How we can do it? This is dangerous. Let us not get into this area. But then those same people, after a couple of sessions, they themselves came up with solutions. How the workplace can be, so welcoming, so productive, and so, embracing for every kind of people. So the males, females, they could coexist, work together, and ensure that the best thing comes out. So it is just about ensuring that we follow the process and do not get our own biases, as it was mentioning. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions here. Either of you could take that. One is, I'm not able to clearly get that, but maybe Betsy or someone can help us understand it. So where do you have difficult conversations? I don't know if the question is about what are the platforms, what is the space where we need to have these difficult conversations. Is that the question? I hope I'm right. The question actually says, I would like to know from where you speak of difficult conversations. Ritu, are you clear with that question? If you want to give it a shot.
Yeah, I think I was coming more from coaches probably enabling, helping their coaches to probably, to train them or to coach them how to have difficult conversations around diversity and inclusion. And so, I mean, in my own experience, I do see that as one very crucial challenge, especially when it comes to gender. And lately, I'm seeing a lot with the Gen Z workforce. I see that the way you communicate or their expectation is very, very different from their managers vis-a-vis probably the older generation or our generation, where we expected our managers to give us more direction, but the Gen Zs expect their managers to be more like coaches, right? So sometimes when you have to give feedback, or maybe when you have to when you're looking at diversity and inclusion, it's not limited to only gender, or or to even to differently abled groups, or but it could be, ageism is also an issue here. So I see that in that context, having difficult conversations, especially around maybe if they come back and say that, I see that I'm being discriminated because of my age, then how do you deal with that? How do you have that conversation with them? And incidentally, that's something which, I had a coaching conversation with one manager only yesterday in a client organization where a very, very young, employee he came back and he said that I feel discriminated against by my manager because he doesn't give me, he thinks that I do not have the required experience to run a project on my own. And so this is where the manager has to have a coaching conversation, being aware of his own bias, because he did say that, I feel that you still have a few more years to go before you are ready for that role. So in that context, yes, he has to have that difficult conversation. And I had to, basically handhold him, help him to have that conversation with that employee. Similarly, it could be even with, it could be related to gender issues, or it could be related to probably, and in India, we do see class, different, even religion playing a big role. And in that context also, it becomes difficult to have those conversations. And we need, as coaches, we need to look at enabling or helping our coaches to have those conversations, because in a way they are having coaching conversations with their employees or whoever they are.
That's you did great. I think that's the strength of coaching, that there is we don't have to shy away from difficult conversations because it's a process of enabling. So that's great. So thank you so much, Ritu. There are a few more questions here. One of that is, what are the main biases related to equity and inclusion that you have found in your clients? I think you already said something about that. And Aslam, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so one typical that I can talk about is certain parts of the society, they are not there in the workforce, and there are some organizations who want to get it, to a level where it is, at least 30%, 40% of that particular part of the society being represented. Now, this is one of the organizations that I worked with, where they had a something called as affirmative action, where they had a big policy, all the processes were there, and they were monitored at the group level.
Mm-hmm.
All those, so whenever we needed to do a kind of a difficult conversation, it was data-based, becomes easy. And this bias per se, even the supervisors, so people leaving the workforce of that particular community, they needed to do a proper exit interview, ensure that whatever the issues are being faced, they are taken care of. So these biases, and many a times we have found that these biases, sometimes the supervisors, they say, oh, I didn't realize that I was acting like that. I didn't realize that I was doing that. And they, they themselves also come up with these kind of issues, and they ask for help. Let's say many a times when I'm working, I'm like in the job, and there are certain decisions that I have to take, and sometimes these things are not there in my mind. Like, this is a bias. So there are some larger biases. There are some which are continuing as they are working. They need to be helped or coached for each one of those, how they can. Yeah, I hope I answered.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. There are a few interesting questions here. One is about systemic discrimination and how we have to sort of balance between respecting people's beliefs and, maneuver the thing. And there is also one on diversity and inclusion in everyday life. And so this is something that I strongly, this is the way I see it. I think diversity and inclusion has to be a part of who we are. And then we take it to the spheres where we are present and the spheres we represent. There's an interesting question here about how will the coaching masteries, how can the coaching masters help us as coaches to develop self-awareness. So either of you could take that. Rita, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think a very, very important a question raised here, that how do we help build our own self-awareness, right? And how can we be more aware of our biases and assumptions? I think one of the ways in which I think the first mastery itself is very, very important. And I think that's where we need to look at focusing on here, that does the, are we providing, are we ensuring a safe space and supportive relationship with our clients? So are we establishing and maintaining a relationship of trust? So in a way, we are also questioning ourselves whether, we are doing it enough or not. And I think the second mastery is, which could probably here I can think of, is engaged listening. It would be where we focus on giving full attention to the words, nuances, everything of what the client is saying, and we do it without judgment, right? So that would require us to also reflect. But I think it's a very, very important question. Sometimes we also need to sit back and even reflect that while the whole premise of coaching is to provide psychological safety, and are we doing enough to create that safe and supportive space for individuals to explore their thoughts, their challenges related to diversity, and are we crossing that boundary and imposing our views somewhere? So so I think that balance has to be provided. I mean, it's a tough call. It's not, it's not easy to do that, but I think it's a very important thing to do, that we sometimes sit back and reflect on our own inner dialogue before we move into the space. And in case we feel that somewhere it's crossing that line, we step back, right? And we take that call that we cannot have that conversation with that individual. So.
Thanks, Ritu. That helps. I think it's a constant balance that we have to be aware of. So that's great. There's an interesting question about coaching itself here. Maybe Aslam, you could take this. Don't you think the size of the organization can be a challenge to make coaching effective, especially in the DEI space? If so, any practices that help in facing it? Could you take that one?
Yeah, so I just, it's actually the last organization that I was talking about, where they had a policy, and this policy was being run from the top of the organization, and this organization is pretty large. At the sake of, I can even name the organization, it's one of the Tata companies. Okay, so Tata Group per se is a huge organization, and this is working awesomely well for them. And whenever a new leader comes in, or a new people come in, it is part of the induction training program that is given to them. The more senior, the more time you spend on this. And it's a policy which you can go through. And there are many case studies. And when this was started, it was way back when it was started. It was a kind of an organizational diktat which came from the top, that these leaders have to be trained, and they went on one step lower. So it was a kind of a fission effect, where one person, then his direct reports, and these persons their direct reports, and then they see in this particular organization, whenever a person does something which impacts, the R&R is also connected to that. Reward and recognition is connected to that. The appraisals are connected to that. So it is, even while you are doing the business, a particular kind of parameters will show that what you are doing, how it is impacting. So when you entirely lead the organization in terms of DEI, and there is sensitivity and training as to what can, with case studies, as to if this happens, then this is what is to be done. If this happens, this is what is to be done. It becomes clearer, and an organization which is so big is able to manage it. That means, yes, it is possible to be done. But then the top management has to have that kind of vision and that, a commitment per se to be able to. It's an expensive thing, but then the business, when it starts churning around, it becomes very cost effective and business positive.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we have a few more minutes left. So I would like our panelists to make their closing statements, and you could try and speak on why you are convinced that coaching is a significant contributor to building an inclusive culture in the workspace. And also, how can coaching help develop DEI champions? So both of you can have a go at that. Rita, do you want to start?
Yeah.
And then
Start.
All right. I think as far as coaching in the space of diversity and inclusion, I personally feel we have a long way to go. And I see someone asked that question as well, where they've asked whether there are any best practices in the organization, though those are far in between. I think we have to really look at, probably, I think all organizations, communities, individuals, we have to document, best practices. We have to make more efforts as individuals, as coaches in this space. I don't think we have as much, we tend to avoid having these conversations. It's probably something that we need to have given a lot of more impetus, a lot more focus. And coaching as a methodology can be very, very impactful to do that, because coaching per se is focused on creating safe space and a supportive space for individuals to share their thoughts, explore their thoughts, concerns, challenges. And I think we need to leverage that. And coaching as a methodology also looks at providing that safety to individuals to express themselves openly and seek guidance. So I think we have to look at, organizations making, and communities. I'm not limiting this conversation only to workplace, but otherwise as well, that we train more people to have those conversations around this topic. We need more training to be provided in this area. We need to build on our own knowledge and the cultural nuances to it. I think we also need to build on our own knowledge around that as coaches too, so that we can help our coachees, our people whom we coach, to probably contribute more to building inclusion and diversity at workplace, in different communities at large. And I think the Masteries 9, which is basically looking at building support systems and structures, inviting, so I think that's something which we have to focus on in our coaching conversations as well, where we help the client to create and use support systems and structures. So I think as as Aslam rightly mentioned, that some organizations do have systems in place, but we need to look at building structures around it. We need to look at encouraging conversations where leaders, managers, communities look at leveraging on it and build capabilities of individuals to have these conversations too. So that's my take on this.
Thank you, Ritu. Thank you. Aslam, would you like to give your closing remarks? Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, the way the coaching per se, it needs to be institutionalized. Not only one coach or a couple of coaches coming and doing a job. Okay, it can start from the top, but ultimately, the entire chain of managers, senior managers, junior managers, supervisors, they all need to start acting like coaches. May not be, the professional type, but they need to have, if nothing, at least an engaged listening. If they can, all the supervisors, all the managers could do that, then the organization is set for the change to come. Not only the DEI, any other change, any other initiative that you're talking about, coaching as a process not only will kind of make them better managers, it will also make the organization much more active and proactive for the challenges which might come. There are so many challenges we don't even know today. The workforce will be ready if their managers, their supervisors have certain level of competency in coaching. That's what I would say. Any organization, whatever the size may be, it doesn't matter. If there is a coaching culture inside the organization, I'm sure the organization is much better poised to handle many problems or many challenges which this organization might face tomorrow. That's my firm
Thank
view.
you. Thank you so much. What a great conversation. And yes, I think it's about building that coaching culture in organizations to enable DEI. And just if to summarize our key takeaways this evening, we just saw how change in the space of DEI is never comfortable, but intentionality is crucial. And to quote Rohini Anand again, she says, change agents have to be strategic in how they expose leaders to experiences that are disruptive so that they can lead DEI with conviction. And I think we've heard enough today to conclude that coaching is one great tool that enables that process. And coaching can be used effectively. And if I can use the word, it can be used to exploit in a positive way to create that ripple effect in the DEI space in all spheres, wherever there's human interaction, not just in the work world, but even in families, communities. You mentioned that as well. Wherever there's participation and human interaction, and I want to. I'm deeply attracted to this principle of Ubuntu. Whenever I speak about DAI, I mention this because it's a beautiful African. It's taken from an African proverb, which the whole concept is about unity in diversity. And Ubuntu actually means I am because we are. Because when we talk about, for instance, gender equality, we can say like it is about women. Women have to think about it, and it doesn't concern the men. But the fact of the matter is, when women are affected, men are affected too. And so, yeah, equal environments, no matter what the type of discrimination is something we need to realize that equal environments benefit everyone. And coaching is that beautiful space where inclusion and diversity can be nurtured without threat or compulsion, despite the discomfort that change brings. So, thank you so much for enriching this conversation, Aslam and Ritu. It's been a pleasure interviewing you and being part of this space here this evening. Thanks to all the participants. If you need to know more about IAC, you can go to our website. I request one of our IAC members to post that website here. I think I also have it. Yeah, I have it there. You can learn more about IAC, become a member, or maybe you want to become a coach yourself. Do check the website. Before you leave, we would like to take a picture. That is sort of the tradition with IAC Learning Circles. So I request all of us to just switch on our cameras for just a couple of, maybe about 10 seconds or so while the pictures are taken. And we just want to say we're deeply grateful for sparing the time to be here this evening. Thank you so much. It's over to the backend team of IAC.